morning. This is KELOLAND on the go with all you need to know in news and weather as you start your day.
Sioux Falls police were called to a report of gunshots in the central part of town early this morning. Our KELOLAND news crew was able to capture this video from the scene at 6th and Spring. Officers were seen setting up police tape at the intersection. Someone was taken away in an ambulance. Now, we hope to learn more at this morning's police briefing. You can watch it live right here on KELOLAND.com starting at 10:30. One of the 3 teenagers charged in the shooting death of a Sioux Falls man pleaded guilty to manslaughter on Monday. Solomon Pole was charged with murder. In a deal with prosecutors, his sentence will be capped at 50 years, and he will cooperate with prosecutors. Detectives say the 3 men went to Paul Billion's apartment to rob him of his marijuana stash in August of 2022. During the robbery, Billion was shot and killed. A Parker man admits to shaking a baby in September last year, causing the infant's death. 26-year-old Philip Delaney has pleaded guilty to manslaughter. In exchange for his plea, prosecutors dropped murder and aggravated battery of an infant charges. Court papers say Delaney was home alone with the child at the time. In documents filed with the plea, Delaney said a combination of events caused him to become frustrated and overwhelmed. He said while he did not intend to cause the child's death, he acknowledged it was a result of his actions. Delaney will be sentenced in January. One man is dead after a crash in eastern Sioux Falls. Police say it happened just before 4:30 Monday afternoon at the intersection of 8th Street and North St. Paul Avenue, just northeast of the Children's Home Shelter. Authorities say that a motorcycle was westbound when it collided with a southbound SUV. The driver of the motorcycle died at the scene. The crash is under investigation. Now let's get a check of this morning's weather with meteorologist Brian Karstens. Much cooler and the chance of rain today, Brian.
Yeah, we're going to cool off here starting later today. Of course, West River folks are already a little cooler, but in the transition, the severe weather parameters are back. So we do have a chance of severe weather this afternoon. A few pockets of wind and hail will occur. I do think a lot of these storms will group up in Nebraska first, and then they'll move quickly to the northeast. Probably storms will be booking along at least at 50 miles an hour to the northeast. So make sure you're ready to go in Sioux Falls once you start hearing about Yankton, because I think that's probably your tip-off that you got an hour or less to kind of get ready for the rain. Well, 83 in Sioux Falls ahead of the storms. We're thinking 78 in Mitchell. Only 67 with some scattered showers, Rapid City. Another look at your forecast is coming up in just a few minutes. South Dakota Game Fish and Parks confirmed another sighting of zebra mussels near Watertown last week. Now the big question is, will we see an infestation in Sioux Falls as a result? Tanner Davis with Game Fish and Parks says they're not expecting to see mussels in Sioux Falls in 2023, but they are monitoring and testing the rivers.
The likelihood of finding them this far downstream with no other detections upstream is very unlikely. And the extent of that infestation, once they do happen to make their way down, is very variable depending on the system. So no two systems are the same. And until that occurs, we will just continue to monitor the situation.
The city did send a statement stating they're working to ensure the safety of the water systems and infrastructure in the city. You can read that statement with this story at KELOLAND.com. Dwayne Meagard was killed in action during the Korean War almost exactly 72 years ago. His legacy was honored last week on the National Mall on a Midwest Honor Flight trip. And this week we spoke with his brother, Roger Meagard of Sioux Falls.
I wish he was living. But of course, at this stage, he would be 95. He would have been 95 this November. So I guess we were happy to honor him in the way that it is set up right now.
Dwayne Meagard was a graduate of Garrettson High School and South Dakota State University. Well, it's a good time to add a furry friend to your home. Adoption fees are reduced right now at the Sioux Falls Area Humane Society. It's all thanks to the Bissell Pet Foundation's Empty the Shelters event. The Humane Society takes in more than 8,000 animals a year.
In order for us to be able to take in this many animals, we need to get the animals out. We're a great holding facility for these animals, but we're not their final homes or their final destinations.
The adoption event runs through October 15th. Walk-in adopters are welcome. And that's a look at some of our top stories. Now let's get one last look at your weather with meteorologist Brian Karstens. Brian?
All right, watching your weather, let's take a look at a couple of things here with the hail and the wind forecast. Just some items to think about later today as we look at 3 o'clock this afternoon. This map represents where there could be some spots of hail. This is a 3 o'clock weather map. It does indicate even as far west as Gregory down to Yankton, there could be some cells here where these little spots of pink and purple show up. I always like to point this out because, you know, hail, when you get to October, the one thing to think about and maybe gets lost in the conversation is that for farmers, you know, they got their bean crop ready to go to be harvested. And if you end up with some strips of hail, that can really be detrimental. The beans will shatter out of those pods. So what I'm basically telling you is that there will be some of that. I'm hoping it's limited, but at least we have to mention it. A lot of these cells on radar will zip to the northeast. So if there is some hail, it'll move quickly. I think it's done by mid to late evening. We're not going to get that kind of weather after sunset as we begin to calm things down. The other little piece here to the forecast is the potential for some stronger, gusty winds with these storms. Now, all morning long, we've been looking at this zone around Yankton, Vermilion. There should be some cells that come up out of Nebraska. Now, I've pixel queried one of these storms with that 70-mile-an-hour wind gust. I'm not telling you that that's exactly where that's going to be, but it gives us an idea. If we kind of draw a radius around Yankton at 4 o'clock, a 30, 40-mile radius, I think it's pretty likely that there'll be some storms with some gusty winds, at least to 60. Some of that probably breaks off, heads toward Lincoln, Minnehaha counties. 50 to 60 looks pretty likely on some of the stronger winds. Could be a little more than that. There'll be more to say about that later today. So for those of you watching this program, I just want to get that messaging out there that we'll be on top of some of those parameters as they occur later today. Once that main push comes through, there is the potential for some redevelopment. Let's look at that on Futurecast. So this brings up the conversation of a couple of light showers here through mid-morning. Yeah, maybe some of that runs up through eastern South Dakota. If that happens, I don't think that's really the main event. Here are the 80s. See that? By 3 o'clock in Sioux Falls, 82. There are the storms southwest of Yankton, and then they march to the northeast. Again, there's quite a few cells here on radar looking like that's going to happen, and then it heads north to Watertown, Millbank, Ortonville, and Marshall through 6 p.m. But see this? There's still more of it hanging around northwest Iowa. So we'll kind of leave that door open, too, for a second push that comes through. Most of that will clear then after midnight, the only leftovers in the northeast. I think we've got a pretty good forecast on Wednesday. It's going to be a lot cooler. It'll be in the 60s. The wind will be out of the west-northwest, but it should dry out. And then when you think we're done, well, guess what? We've got wind and maybe some return showers by Thursday and Friday. They'll be dotting the northern plains, and it will feel like fall. We're really going to cut the highs here in the 50s. Yeah, we can say that, but until we get to feeling it, get ready for a big change. That's going to be, think about it. Think of the math on that. That's at least 40, some cases 40 to 50 degrees cooler than where we've been here on highs. We were 95 on Sunday in Sioux Falls, and we're forecasting 56 by Saturday. Lows could be in the 30s, some frost potentially there. That's a secondary story we'll be looking at a little bit more as we get a better idea on wind and clouds and all those things. You notice Aberdeen and Pier 2, you're certainly down in the 50s for a couple days. Don't worry, we're back to nice autumn weather next week. We're going to get back in the 60s and 70s. Rapid City easily will be on that trend line by Sunday and Monday. Check out more details with the weather online at KELOLAND.com.